So what do we make of Tua Tagovailoa's 2023 fantasy football season, and how do we project him going forward into 2024? This is the Fantasy Sports Boss with another player analyzer video. These are going to be coming daily throughout the course of the offseason, so make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Also the notification button, and also you can become a member of the channel by hitting the join button and picking which plan you want. In terms of membership, gives you some added features and whatnot of the channel. Now, as far as Tua Tagovailoa is concerned, going back to last summer, and I always like to begin these videos like sort of like a rehash prior to last season. And last summer, Tagovailoa was one of the most radioactive names in fantasy football at the QB position. All right. Now, on the one hand, he played at an MVP level, especially the first half of 2022, where he was firing touchdown passes all over the place. The second part of the coin, though, in the equation, the second half of the season especially, is that once again, he missed a bunch of games with injury. This time it was 4 games, 2 separate concussions, very scary on Christmas Day against the Green Bay Packers when he was in that prone position with his fingers splayed out in the air. It was very scary, very disturbing. And there were rumblings during the offseason that Tagovailoa was even contemplating retirement. Injury-prone quarterback, even going back to college, and that alone in and of itself dogged Tagovailoa's draft value coming into 2023, in addition to the fact that he is not a runner. And we made a big deal about it on this channel and elsewhere, how you really need to get those dual threat quarterbacks to give you an advantage in fantasy football. So as it was, Tagovailoa was wound up going as QB 11 in the majority of drafts last season, all right behind Dak Prescott, who was QB 10. Not a shock there. But those who did draft Tagovailoa were thinking to themselves, okay, I waited, stocked up on running backs and receivers. I grabbed Tagovailoa, who is piloting what looked to be a very potent offense with a pair of some of the best receivers in football in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And then, a running game led by Raheem Mostert as well. So this looked like a really good offense to invest in. Now, certainly at the start of the season, the first 3 games especially, Tagovailoa was paying off big time. He put, in 2 of those first 3 games, he went over 30 fantasy points, all right? 8 total passing touchdowns those first 3 games. And right off the bat, he looked like MVP-worthy Tua Tagovailoa from the first half of 2022. From that point on, however, the troubles really began. And here's the ironic part here. Tagovailoa stayed healthy the whole season. He played all 17 games for Miami. So that was like a minor miracle right there. But the numbers didn't flow after week 3. So just looking at some of the stats that I have here. Now, as far as the last 14 games of the season, right? Only 3 more games of those last 14 did Tagovailoa put forth at least 22 fantasy points. All right, so 30 plus 2 of the first 3 games, but the last 14 games, only 3 of those last 14 did Tagovailoa put up at least 22 fantasy points, which is a really bad ratio for a fantasy football quarterback. You really want like 24 or 25 from your starter. Now, the last 7 starts in the season, he put forth 20 fantasy points 1 time. So 1 game down the stretch when you need your quarterback to do their best work, he put forth only 1 game of 20 fantasy points out of the last 7, which is a terrible, trend at the end of the season. Now, the final season numbers, if you just looked at it in passing, were pretty good. 29 passing touchdowns, which is a big number. 4,624 passing yards. That's another big number. And he made all 17 starts. Wound up finishing QB 10, so slightly better than his draft spot. So he paid off. You made a slight profit on Tua Tagovailoa. But you have to look under the hood here. Tagovailoa was pretty much a compiler because he made all 17 starts, all right? There was not a lot of dynamic playmaking here. We already talked about how he didn't finish strong. Only 1 of his last 7 games, 20 fantasy points. 3 of his last 14 did he go for at least 22. So those are not good trends there. He was very top-heavy in the beginning. And again, staying healthy for all 17 games helped the counting stats. On the negative side, only 74 yards on the ground. So Tua Tagovailoa is not a runner. So I've said this many times. When you have a quarterback who is strictly a pocket passer like Tua, the margin of error is very small. And they need to throw for at least 2 passing touchdowns in a game to justify starting them that week, right? Anything, if he throws one touchdown, he's not doing anything on the ground. So that is a negative week fantasy wise. 2 touchdowns through the air, better, not, otherworldly. You really want 3. Whereas a running quarterback can get away with 1 passing score if he scores on the ground and picks up a bunch of yardage on the ground as well. Like Lamar Jackson could throw 1 touchdown, run for 1 on the ground, and run for 80 yards, and it's a much better outing than Tua Tagovailoa. All right, so that's another negative. And finally, here is this when looking at 2024. Do you actually expect Tua Tagovailoa to remain healthy for a second season in a row? Absolutely not. There is almost no chance that he's going to stay healthy for 17 games in a row, just like he did in 2023. His trend going back to Alabama is that he can't get through a season without getting hurt. I know we still got Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, but this is also an offense that gets a lot of production on the ground. Raheem Mostert and Devin Achane gobbled up a ton of scores on the ground last season. That's going to be an issue for him as well. Touchdown potential. A lot of those touchdowns can be on the ground for Miami because it worked for them last year. And Devin Achane is on the verge of becoming a true breakout at running back. They're not going to stunt his growth either. So again, small margin of error for Tagovailoa. No running aspect to his game at all. Which is a negative in today's fantasy football world. And then he's not going to stay healthy again for a second season in a row. It's almost not going to happen. So in a single quarterback league, he's still going to be drafted in that. He might even drop a little bit to QB 11, 12, 13, 14. Could probably make a slight profit there again, but I'm chasing better. I want a runner at quarterback. Tagovailoa is not going to stay healthy. I'm out on him for 2024. Let me know what you think. Post in the comments. We will see how this turns out. And, of course, more videos on the way, so stay tuned.